On October 28th of 1943, something strange happened to the USS Eldridge. Something that allegedly changed our understanding of space, time, and the fundamental laws of physics. Today, we know this event as the Philadelphia experiment, and it has been the subject of fierce debate among paranormal researchers. As you might expect, the incident has also been subject to equally fierce denials from the US Navy. One thing is certain, after more than 75 years, this event has yet to be fully explained. This story involves experimental electromagnetic technology and some of the brightest scientific minds in history, such as Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla. Some say the ship merely became impervious to magnetic torpedoes. Some say that the ship became invisible, while still others claim that it managed to instantly teleport across a distance of over 200 miles. But perhaps the wildest theory involves the USS Eldridge leaving this physical dimension, slipping through time and space before reappearing in horrifying circumstances. So what exactly happened on that day? Let's find out. Here's what we know. The naval destroyer known as the USS Eldridge was a real ship, first commissioned on August 27th of 1943. Edward Dudgeon, who served on the USS Ingstrom as an electrician, later stated that both the Ingstrom and the Eldridge were carrying classified devices at the time of the alleged Philadelphia experiment. However, Dudgeon claims that these devices were merely capable of degaussing the hulls of both ships, rendering them impervious to magnetic torpedoes. Degaussing is a process in which systems of electrical cables are installed around the circumference of a ship's hull, running from bow to stern on both sides. A measured electrical current is passed through these cables to cancel out the ship's magnetic field. Skeptical observers have stated that this degaussing technology was misunderstood by sailors at the time, leading to swirling rumors about invisibility cloaks. One thing we know for sure is that the Allies were losing a considerable number of ships to Nazi U-boats at this point in history. The US Navy was willing to try pretty much anything to limit these losses, and it would have been very open to any kind of technology that could have given them an edge. We also know that radar invisibility is real, and this type of technology is currently in use today by the USS Tulsa, an American destroyer that uses various stealth features. If the Navy did in fact become technology capable of teleporting ships, or making them invisible, they would have certainly tested their devices. It's also worth mentioning that they would have denied the existence of this technology, while doing everything in their power to keep their experiments top secret. On August 27th, the USS Eldridge was allegedly in dry dock at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard when witnesses saw what they later described as an eerie green-blue glow surrounding the ship. Then, the unthinkable happened. To everyone's shock, the ship completely vanished before reappearing moments later. This test was allegedly repeated in October with equally strange results. The ship disappeared once again from Philadelphia's waters, but this time, witnesses at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Virginia reported seeing the Eldridge suddenly appear. It reportedly stayed there for a few moments before dematerializing once again. Next, the destroyer teleported instantly back to the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, over a distance of more than 200 miles. For the next 13 years, almost no one was aware that this paranormal event had ever occurred. But in 1956, a man came forward who had allegedly witnessed the incident firsthand. His name was Carlos Miguel Allende. He believed that the ships were able to teleport thanks to experimental technology based on Einstein's unproven unified field theory. He also claimed that these devices relied on massive Tesla coils, capable of generating vast amounts of electromagnetic energy. 1 year later, after the man spoke out, the Office of Naval Research reported that they had received strange, handwritten notes that seemed to suggest that this technology was extraterrestrial in origin. It was later confirmed that these notes had been written by Carl M. Allen, who who had been hiding his identity by using the pseudonym Carlos Miguel Allende. At least 2 ONR officers were later found with 127 copies of these annotated notes, professionally printed and distributed by a military contractor. These texts later became known as the Vero texts, and they are highly sought after by paranormal researchers. Allen claims to have witnessed the experiment while serving on the SS Andrew Furuseth, which was stationed at Norfolk when the Eldridge teleported nearby. He also claimed that when the Eldridge reappeared back in Philadelphia, after its initial teleportation, the crew was discovered in horrific circumstances. According to Allen, some were incurably insane, some had been frozen in place, and others had been literally fused to the metal of the ship, partially embedded in the hull and crying out in agony. The theory led to a number of books and films that explored some of the more paranormal elements of the Philadelphia experiment, including time travel and teleportation. After a 1983 film was released, a man named Alfred Bielek came forward. He claimed that seeing this movie triggered his suppressed memories of being on board the Eldridge during the Philadelphia experiment. He later repeated his version of the events on numerous talk shows and reported that the crew of the Eldridge had been hypnotized and brainwashed in order to suppress their memories of the incident. The Navy has categorically denied that this incident ever took place. On the official website of the Naval History Command, representatives of the Navy state that no documents have ever been found that confirm the existence of the Philadelphia experiment. They claim that the Eldridge's war diary proves that it was in New York at the time of the alleged experiment, which would suggest that this entire story is impossible since it was not in Philadelphia in August or October. Instead, it only arrived in Norfolk alongside 4 other ships in December of that year. The Navy also insists that the Eldridge's movements can be confirmed by microfilm currently held in the National Archives. In addition, the Navy states that the Andrew Furuseth had also left Norfolk by the 16th of August, long before witnesses reported seeing the teleportation of the Eldridge. In 1943, the master of the Andrew Furuseth apparently wrote a letter denying he or his crew had observed any unusual events. But why would this individual need to write a letter denying an event that never happened? The mere existence of the letter itself suggests that the Navy wanted to immediately dispel all rumors of the Philadelphia experiment less than a year later. This completely goes against the idea that the story was created over 10 years later by UFO researchers. At the very least, there had to have been rumors of paranormal activities in 1943. Otherwise, the letters wouldn't have been written. The Navy also points out that the use of electromagnetic fields to render a ship invisible is physically impossible, and that Einstein's unified field theory was never completed. They also denied the existence of radar invisibility, but this has later been achieved with the USS Tulsa as an obvious example. We also know that the USS Timmerman was experimenting with a high-frequency generator that produced corona discharges at the time, and it's clear that the Navy was experimenting with unusual technology during World War II. If Allen's handwritten notes were so outlandish, then why did the Office of Naval Research feel the need to print 127 copies of his writings, annotated and professionally compiled? Some skeptics also point out that a ship could theoretically travel from Philadelphia to Norfolk at relatively fast speeds using the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal, a route that was kept top secret during the war. But what about the green glow reported by witnesses at the Philadelphia Naval Yard? Some have suggested that this could have been the result of a rogue electrical storm, or perhaps an instance of St. Elmo's fire, a rare weather phenomenon that sometimes creates corona discharges from the masts of ships. However, Nikola Tesla succeeded in creating artificial corona discharges that were identical to St. Elmo's fire, so this might be simply another sign that advanced technology was being used at the time of the Philadelphia experiment. What are the chances of this rare weather phenomenon occurring exactly when classified technology was being tested on the USS Eldridge, even if the technology was simply a degaussing device? There could have been some kind of malfunction that created the corona discharges. If the Navy was testing some kind of experimental technology at the time, wouldn't they do everything in their power to cover it up? Wouldn't they change the ship's logs and force various captains to write letters stating that they were never there? At the end of the day, we can never really be sure of what kind of technology the military is testing at any given time. World War II sparked a tremendous explosion of technological innovation as various nations scrambled to establish an advantage over their enemies. That was more than 75 years ago. And if the Navy really was testing technology like this back in 1943, then what kind of devices could they be experimenting with today? The USS Eldridge was eventually transferred to Greece in 1951, before being sold for scrap metal in the 1990s. The ship was disassembled, piece by piece, and currently it is nothing more than a pile of waste. A humble ending for a ship that may have destroyed the laws of physics. We may never know how far these chunks of metal were able to travel, through both space and time.